With the election of Joe Biden and debates about new infrastructure bills in Congress, traveling by train has been a big topic as of late. While discussing the future of our modern railroad system, it's good to take a look at the past and see how we got to where we are now. Unfortunately, not every story of railroad expansion has a happy ending. I'm ThinkSoJoE, this is Things You Might Not Know, and this is an official content warning for those of you with travel anxiety, because today I'm going to tell you about the tragedy known as the Angola Horror. The 19th century saw the invention of a mode of transportation that would connect the United States in a way never seen before, the steam-powered locomotive and subsequent railroad system. With transporting goods, people, and livestock across state lines now being easier than it was in the past, the latter half of the century saw a boom in the country's economy as a result. One such railroad was the Lakeshore Railway, which originally was built to connect various parts of what we now know as the Rust Belt. With its original path running from Cleveland to just outside Erie, Pennsylvania when the line was opened in 1852, it wasn't long before the Lakeshore Railway expanded. Inside of the next decade, the railway would be augmented to include Buffalo in its path, but would ultimately grow to interconnect a path that would run from Chicago to New York City. Before chugging forward, a big thanks to David Price for suggesting this topic. If you have an idea for a story that you would like to see featured on Things You Might Not Know, make sure you drop that in the comments. At 6:40 a.m. on December 18, 1867, a train meant to run the New York Express leg of the Lakeshore Railway system left Cleveland Union Terminal bound for Buffalo. The train's expected arrival time in Buffalo was 1:30 p.m. that same day, but began running exceptionally late. By the time the train reached Angola, New York, approximately 22 miles southwest of Buffalo, they were running 2 hours and 45 minutes late. Now, I know my name isn't Think So Karen, but I would definitely want to speak to the manager if my train were running that late. Aware of how behind they were running, the engineer bumped the speed up to allegedly dangerous levels to try and make up for the lost time. At 3:11 p.m., the train went over a railway intersection, also known as a frog, just east of Angola. As the train passed over the frog, one of the wheels jumped off the track, causing the rearmost car to derail and lurch back and forth. The brakes were immediately used, but because of the speed the train had already built up, there was no way to stop it quickly. It continued to advance towards a truss bridge that crossed over the gorge for Big Sister Creek 40 feet below. The rear car fully derailed, uncoupled from the rest of the train, and plummeted into the icy gorge below. The second-to-last car also derailed when the rear car was uncoupled. That car made it to the other side of the bridge before also ending up in the gorge after sliding down the embankment. During this time period in railway travel, passengers were kept warm with cast-iron wood-burning stoves located at both ends of the rail car. When the rear car landed at the bottom of the gorge, it did so at a 45-degree angle. This caused all the passengers inside to be thrown together on top of one of the cast-iron stoves that had been upended. The stove that had been located at the opposite end of the car came crashing down on top of the passengers, dumping hot coals all over them. It comes as no surprise that the rail car caught fire, but the fire was exacerbated by the kerosene lamps that hung throughout the car, meant to provide light during travel. 2 badly burned individuals were able to escape the wreck. The rest of the passengers died, having been burned alive. The second-to-last car that slid down the embankment only had 1 casualty. When information about this tragic accident hit newsstands nationwide, it had been officially dubbed the Angola Horror. While the excess speed was not disputed as being a factor in the crash, it was not the main reason why this happened. Because railroads were still early in their development during this era, there was not much standardization in the size of the actual rails from region to region. Some of the cars used for the Lakeshore Railway had a base 1.5 inches smaller than the actual rail gauge. This led to instability of rail cars and slight bending of axles, and was considered the reason why the rear car derailed in the first place. In the end, 49 people died as a result of the Angola Horror, but it was almost 50. John D. Rockefeller, who was 28 years old at the time, was meant to be on this train, but arrived too late to board. This definitely would have been a different country today if the wealthiest American of all time had good time management. The public outcry over the accident led to many fixes for the railroad system, including better braking systems, more secure stoves for heating, and the standardization of track gauges everywhere. There are currently 2 memorials for the Angola Horror that you can visit right now. The first is a sign which was erected in the town of Angola in 2008. Because some of the victims were buried at Forest Lawn Cemetery in Buffalo, presumably not that far from the grave of Rick James, a memorial was also erected within the cemetery in 2015. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching Things You Might Not Know. If you enjoyed today's video, please leave a comment and a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell icon so you get notified every time I post a new video. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and you can see a playlist of Things You Might Not Know videos over here. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time!